Jonathan McNeice. I'm an urban planner with the City of Edmonton. When I went to planning school to do my master's, I specialized in food systems planning and land use. And what that means is looking at the food system considers everything from production to processing to consumption to waste. So it takes a holistic perspective and reflects on how everything works together. Before that, and I did that in Buffalo, New York, which was a very interesting experience. Before that, I co-founded a nonprofit that dealt with food system issues in suburban Ontario, just outside of Toronto in Oakville. We did programs and projects around farmers markets, community gardens, fruit tree gleaning. We did training, education, partnership development, and all about food and healthy living. I've also done some policy work. I was the co-chair and member of the Halton Food Policy Council. We did community food assessments, a food charter, and various things like that at the regional level. And over the past year at the City of Edmonton, I've been working on FRESH, which is the city's food and urban agriculture strategy. Recently in November got approved by council, and now we're in sort of an implementation planning phase, and we have some funding to develop a food policy council. Well, you know, there's many successful examples out there, and I would say some of the best models are outside of North America. You look at places like Cuba, like Belo Horizonte, Brazil. They've done it almost out of necessity, and they've used every square inch to grow food. But definitely within North America, there is urban agriculture policy. It's new in many places. I'd say there's a couple different scenarios. When I was in Buffalo, there's a big vacant land problem. It's a Rust Belt city, similar to Detroit, Cleveland, places like that. So growing food was seen as an active use for vacant land. And it's been quite successful in cities like that. But there's also rapidly growing cities like Toronto, Vancouver, New York, London, England, Calgary, and now Edmonton, where food is viewed as sort of a necessity in downtown. And there's been sort of a bit of a disconnect between rural and urban agriculture seen as this link to bring it back together. So there's a few different contexts for that. But every situation is different. Each city has different history, different cultures, different political environment, different expertise. So I wouldn't say that there is one model that will apply to a number of different cities, because they're all unique in their own, you know, every city is different. But there's definitely some promising practices out there. You know, some stuff we've seen that we liked around aquaponics, which is growing fish, can be in urban areas in a closed loop system. Rooftop gardening, vertical farming, things like that can be of a commercial scale. Good example is Lufa Farms in Montreal on top of an industrial building. And they grow a vast amount of fresh produce that gets to markets within hours. So there's many good examples out there, but I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all. And just another good resource for urban food policy, Kimberly Hodgson from the American Planning Association did some work on that, and she's published a guide that covers all food policy in North America at many different levels, so municipal, provincial, things like that. That's a very good resource. I can provide you a link for that. But I would say in Alberta, urban agriculture policy is quite new. Agriculture policy has been around for a while. But on the urban side, it's very new, but many cities are taking it very seriously. In Edmonton, there's a lot of resources and time and public involvement put into developing FRESH, the city's food and urban agriculture strategy. And I think that just shows the importance around urban agriculture. To give you a few Ontario examples, Toronto has one of the first food policy councils in North America, and some view it as the most successful. It's been around for over 20 years. They also have a food strategy for the city, and they have a department or a small team whose job it is to implement this strategy. So that's very important once the strategy is done, that there's team members that can continue on and implement. There's also an alliance of food institutions in Ontario called Sustain, and they've recently been successful in lobbying the provincial government to get a local food act. So then the new premier just announced, Premier Wynne, that she's taking that very seriously, and they're trying to move forward. And also, another difference in Ontario is food is largely dealt with through public health, and public health is at the regional level, whereas in Alberta, public health is now at the provincial level. So there's definitely some differences in how food policy is addressed between Ontario and Alberta, but they're definitely both taking that very seriously.